You're listening to Together by AGCI. I'm Melissa Rush. Today, my co-host Marisa and I are chatting with the one and only Jep Robertson. You might know Jep from Duck Dynasty, but we're lucky enough to know him through his work with AGCI as a National Advancement Officer. Today, we're talking about Jep's journey to AGCI and the life-changing experiences he's had along the way. Let's get into our conversation. Well, welcome, Jep, back to the podcast. We're so excited to have you on. It's been a while.
Thank you. It has been a while. I'm excited to be here.
Well, we're so glad to have you. Thanks for taking the time today, dropping some knowledge bombs on us.
Yes.
You always have good things to share. And I know both of us have looked forward to being able to chat with you today. So thanks from me too.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. So Jep, you first learned about AGCI when you attended our auction in Austin a few years ago. Can you just share a little bit about what stood out to you about AGCI and kind of why you felt called to get involved with the work?
Yeah, I've been to a lot of auctions and different charity events. And this one it was a last minute thing. My friend asked me to, and honestly, I wasn't expecting much. And then I was crying so hard. I was with a table full of guys, and I just got so affected by what Laura was saying. It hit me hard, and just kids has always been a big thing to me, adoption. And I was like, man, I want to do something with these guys. What can I do?
I love that. I was at that auction too, and I had that same reaction where I even kind of knew some of Laura's story, and I was a disaster, just bawling, having her speak and, just share some of her story. It was really powerful night. Well, I'm glad that you last minute came.
Me too.
Pretty lucky for us.
And we stuck around. Toward the end of that, I stuck around and got to meet Brad, and who I work with closely now, and just kind of shook some of the board's hand. And I was like, man, these people are super fired up and really are helping kids.
Yeah. Well, it meant a lot to us that you even would come. I know my husband met you that evening. We have a picture of it, and he was so excited, how cool that Jep would come and want to hear from us about what we do and you stayed and chit chatted with everybody. It meant a lot to everyone. And you could tell right away that you were maybe more than just an attender that evening. It's funny to see what God does in all of our lives through these little moments. You never know.
That's right.
So, what was your first, in-person experience with work? I would say, what did you do after that event? What was a next step for you?
So it's funny, Brad Van Stavern, he followed up with me. He got my number and was like, hey man, let me take you to lunch. And I was like, cool. And we were talking, and I was asking questions about all God's children. He was like, well, we started getting into it deeper. And once I really started learning about the work, and it's funny, I think I stopped him. I interrupted him. I was like, hey, buddy, I'm going to support you guys 100%. And, I'm going to donate to you guys. I said, but I want to do more. I want to do what you're doing. I want to go sit down with people. And it shocked him. I could tell he was like, okay. I don't think anybody's ever said that.
What?
Yeah. I want to do what you're doing. And he was like, okay. And so we set up a meeting, me and my wife, Brad and his wife, Adam Todd, a board member, and his wife, and Holland, who was in town, the president. And it was so funny because Holland and my wife sat across from each other at the table. They talked for 2 hours nonstop, just about kids and adoption and all God's children and us adopting us. And it was so funny. I didn't get a word in. I was talking kind of on the other end of the table. And when it was over, we shook hands, exchanged numbers, and Jessica, we got in the car. She goes, you have to work with these people. I love what they're doing. How can we make this happen? You make it happen. I was like, yes, ma'am. So that's kind of how it all started.
Well, you got to love Jess.
Yes.
She's like, this is it for you.
Yeah, that's so awesome that she was on board right away. Cause like, I mean, I don't know. It's a new organization. You're kind of just like first learning about it. You really hadn't had a ton of exposure. And she's like, hey, this is something we need to be involved in. That's
and this is
cool.
coming off the heels. I mean, kind of more of a backstory is I'd had a food trailer, like a big Airstream. We could convert it into like a food truck trailer. And that had just kind of wound up. Like I was kind of like, I really didn't want to. I tried it. It's not for me. I love them. I love going to them, but it just wasn't my thing. And so we had been praying and stuff. And I told her a month before all this happened, I said, I want to do something with charity. And I was like, honestly, something with kids, maybe adoption, something like that. I was like, maybe I can start my own charity. That's where I started, I looked into that and I was, ooh, that's a lot, that's a long,
a lot of work.
haul.
Yeah.
A lot of, yeah.
So then we met like that, and it was just like, there was something, 100% a God thing was like, I think you were supposed to be with these people. So it was cool.
I love that. I love it too, especially like as adults. I don't know. Maybe you don't feel this way, Melissa, but I love just that. I think a lot of us are always kind of looking like, okay, God, what do you have next for me? What's my life supposed to look like? And that God, when you pray that prayer, it's not just something thrown out to the wind. It's something that, between you and the Lord that was serious, and you didn't maybe know going into it, but you sure had it confirmed quickly. I love that.
Yeah. Just being like open-hearted to what, things looking different than you maybe thought.
It was hard because I'm 40 years old at the time, and, I should be deep into my profession doing something, whatever. But, I have such a weird work history, I guess, like working for my family and then being on a successful TV show, and just kind of a weird place in my life where like, what am I going to do now? I mean, it was stressful, to be honest with you. I mean, it was a lot of prayer and like, man, what are we doing? Like, so it was kind of scary, but
I love your openness. Like, I think, on another note, sometimes I think as adults, we also feel like, well, I've gone down this path so far, like I can't change what I'm doing. I have to, continue on this road because I've already invested so much time and energy and resources into that. And so to kind of take a step back and really think about it and pray about it and feel like, okay, no, this is like where we are being called to be. And it looks different than what I thought it would, but I don't know. I think that takes a lot of courage.
Yeah. And I mean, what inspired me too was Brad, because getting to know him. Have y'all had Brad on here yet or not?
No, he hasn't been on yet.
But we both know Brad well. Yeah.
You should have, because I'm saying all good things about Brad. I hope he listens to this podcast. He's going to love it.
We'll find out if he listens or not.
Yeah. Well, he told me, he said, man, we were having that meeting. He said, I was a very successful insurance guy, like had my own business, was doing super well. And basically he was like, I just got hit by the God hammer. And God was like, you need to do something else. You need to do something that helps people. And he was like, it was a tough thing for him too, kind of like, and it inspired me to be like, man, I mean, this guy was doing these awesome things, making money. It was like, nope, this isn't what God wants me to do right now. So he inspired me a ton.
Wow. Oh, that's really cool. So after that first kind of meeting and you and Jeff just decided, okay, this is where we need to be right now. How soon, because you guys went and saw the work firsthand, right? Like tell us a little bit about that. Where did you go? What did you do?
So after that meeting, I think me and Holland just talked on the phone. I was like, look, I'm ready. I want to do something with you guys. I don't know what that looks like, but I was like, what can I do? And she said, nothing right now. And I was like, okay. She kind of shocked me a little bit. She was like, no, not right now. And I was like, well, okay, well, when? She was like, well, look, you need to come in like a month and we're going to Ethiopia. You come with I want you to see what we're doing. You figure out how to get there and we'll take care of you. And I was like, man, it's a pretty big leap. Fly to Ethiopia. I hadn't been out of the country in a lot of years. And I was a little nervous about it, but I was like, you know what? I'm just going to go. And that was the big that was the big decision that kind of changed everything.
That is brave to go to Ethiopia, I have to say. As your first trip out, because that's a long trip. There are so many cultural differences, and it's just the food's everything's different. Just in the most beautiful ways, but in some scary ways too, where you're like, I've never done this before. It really nothing like busting right out of your comfort zone to,
that's right.
to do this. But I love that. It's very brave. I applaud you for stepping out in that way. I don't know. It's something I obviously have known about you, but it's interesting hearing from this perspective. It really is remarkable that you were willing to take those steps, and inspiring to hear. So, how would you say your mind set has shifted really since seeing that work firsthand? How did that experience change you, at the beginning of experiencing it, and then how has it changed you over the years, would you say?
So on that trip, I think the second day we went to a government-run orphanage, and when I say horrible sights, I've told this story a few times, but I don't know about publicly, but we saw kids it's hard to still talk about now. Handicapped kids being tied down, and I remember Holland rubbing one on the head and his eyes rolled back he hadn't been touched in a long time. And it was just, we went to the baby room. There's no babies crying because it was they wasn't getting milk anyway. And it was really tough. And I called Jessica that night and I was like, oh my gosh, these people need help. And we met with the lady who ran that particular one, and she was so frustrated and it was so hard. And then I went to a place where All God's Children was intervening, and man, these kids were happy. They were cared for. I was I'd just seen the worst of the worst where we weren't allowed to help. And then I saw where we were allowed to help and how these kids were thriving and doing well. And I was like, man, these people are making a difference. It just really, and I called Jessica that night just crying, I love these people. I love what they're doing. It's hard. I'm saying some hard things, but there's hope. And so that trip we ended, I met with Holland and she said, well, what do you think? And I said, sign me up. I'm all in with you guys. I don't know what that looks like. I said, but I'm all in.
Gives me the chills. It makes me all choked up. I've seen those kids too. And it's something that stays with you, I think, for your entire life. Sure. Just that, what you've seen, how kids can be treated, and the difference of getting care to these kids. And I don't know, seeing God's heart for them and that he wants something better for them than what they're getting. But yeah, it just wrecks me even hearing you talk about it right now. Oh gosh. But yeah.
Well, and there's something about seeing that firsthand. You can hear about it from other people, but actually walking into a room and seeing kids just in a place that feels like there is no hope. And there's nothing really like that. It just wrecks you completely. But it also forces you to be what can I do? And because everybody can do something. And then seeing the other side of it, there is hope. There are those moments where it feels hopeless, but there is so much hope. And that's what obviously we believe.
I told my kids, that's right. Well, I got back, because the one thing it'll really change you. And I wish every American kid would have a chance to go over and visit with these kids, is you will be so much more appreciative of what you have and what you can do in this country. Because we have it good.
Yeah. And even just resources that we have in this country, for people to get help, that when you see it, you realize not only are there no resources, it's it's way beyond that. There's nothing. There's no child welfare system. There's no, if someone's struggling, there's nowhere to go to get help. It's life and death. And I don't say it dramatically, especially in Ethiopia, seeing that it's exactly it. You realize so quickly, how fortunate we are and that God put us in this place. And for me personally, it was like, okay, Lord, like you put me in this place where I'm so fortunate and I'm so blessed and had a good family and a good, I grew up and, loved Jesus and all of that. And then like, what do I do with it though? And that's why I'm here. But yeah, it's just, I don't know. It's pretty incredible to hear.
It's obviously so hard to talk about, but like how did you talk about those difficult things that you witnessed with your family, with your kids? Like, how did you explain, that it's so unfair, the disparity in the world? Yeah.
I mean, it's hard to explain. Like I said, I just told them like, really appreciate what you have. And what you notice over there, what I've noticed is, the people who we help, they still don't have much. I mean, they don't, there's just not much there to have. So it's like, but that's it. Their hope you see is they have it. They have hope. That's the big life changer. It's like that. I don't have to live like these people who are just, literally just kids in the street, have no hope. They're a lot addicted to drugs, like huffing and all that kind of stuff. And, it's really changing. I feel like the work we're doing is changing generations. And I couldn't be more proud. That's also what I told my kids. I was like, I could go have a job, whatever. I don't know what that looks like, but it was like, what I'm doing now is giving kids hope. To me, what else what do you want to do in your life? It's like, you want to make a ton of money on the stock market or like help kids? Like it is just a no-brainer to me.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we're glad you feel that way because we all can have an impact, big and small, but we have to want to do it.
Yeah, I love that. So one aspect of the work that we do at AGCI that I know is important to you on a personal level is adoption. You talked a little bit about it already. And one of your sons is adopted. So how has adoption and, bringing Gus home, like changed your family? How would you say?
It's really my whole family and my brother Willie adopted his son Will. And we grew up taking care of Will, me and Jessica, when they would be gone out of town. He was at our house a lot as a baby and as a young child. And so we have a really cool relationship with Will. And it's just something I always, it's funny, I didn't always want to do. I will be honest about that. But Jessica always wanted to. And I kind of changed my mind on that when I went to the Dominican Republic when I was fairly young, and our church had a small orphanage there, and I met those kids. Man, it wrecked me. And I was young. I was in my early 20s, and me and Jessica had just been married or whatever. And I remember coming back from the trip, and I was like, at some point, I was like, I do see us adopting. I can see how we can, help a kid. And it's funny, you don't really, that's what you think about it pre-adoption. It's like, oh, we can help somebody. Then you adopt and it's like, oh, they're my family. Yeah. It's like
yes.
There's a big shift there. What you think about adoption is, and then once you do it, like, oh my gosh, this was meant to be. There was no, we're helping a kid. It's like, no, this kid is my family and I will do whatever it takes to protect this kid. It's like it's like pre having a child, just, you think, oh, it's going to be amazing. And then you do it and it's like, oh no, it's beyond amazing. It's like, it's incredible. It's like, you can't, there's no words, I guess, what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, absolutely.
No words.
That's so cool how your heart was like open to that, kind of seeing different things and having different experiences. So I'm curious, how has adopting a Black child changed your worldview?
It's been tougher than you would think. I don't know how much in detail, but I'll tell you that. It's true. I've talked about it before. We caught a lot of hate. Like because we were doing a show kind of about our adoption story. It was called Jeff and Jess Growing the Dynasty. And we got a call from somebody who said the TMZ people want to talk to you. And I was like, okay. And that we were interviewing, and one of the guys was like, why did you choose to adopt a black child? And I said, I didn't. What do you mean? And he was like, why not just adopt a white child? And I said, we didn't ask for a certain type of child. We just said, we'll adopt a child. And we don't care gender, race, whatever. And it was funny because I was like, and then I asked later, I was like, can you do that? Can you? I didn't even know that was a possibility. I thought if you just, and I learned later you can.
There's still places.
It might. Right. And I was like, it just seemed odd to me because I was like, I don't know why you would just pick. It just seems so weird. But anyway, but we caught a lot of hate, like on, social media was like, some super racist stuff. And I stayed away because of it. They were like, white people need adopting too. And all the, it's just super hate. And I was just like, I quit. I told Jessica, I was like, I cannot do social media. I'm done. And I didn't mess with it for years. And still now I won't read any comments. But it's tough and people look at you funny, you're at the grocery store or whatever. And it's definitely a harder road. There's no way around it. And he's had trouble at times, like kind of the saddest moment. I don't know if you ever said this publicly, but I don't mind saying it. It was hard. He was like 4 years, probably a couple years ago, and he was in the bath, like scrubbing his arms hard. And Jessica was like, buddy, what's wrong? And he was like, his exact words, he said, I don't want to be brown. I want to be gray like you. And it broke her heart, and it broke my heart, and we cried, and we had a long talk. Funny, Jessica was like, buddy, I want to be brown like you. Like, it's just a tough thing to get through, but we try to do as we can and celebrate. His skin color is a little different. It's okay. Like, that's fine. And, but it's it can be hard. I will say that. It's hard on him. It's hard on, it's not the easiest way to do it, but I think sometimes that's just the way it happens, and God has our back, and we just work through those things. So.
Well, and it's interesting, obviously we have that in common with, it's hard. It's hard being a black child in a white family. Like, I think you have to acknowledge that with them as they get older, and it started way younger than I thought for our daughter too, where, she started, the first time she ever said it, I broke down into tears, went off and cried. And then later on, she told me she wanted to be blue. And I was like, oh, okay. I definitely jumped the gun on my tears on that one. But she, as she gets older, for sure, she, that's part of the heartbreak of adoption. There are so many beautiful things. And then, I've told her lots of times, of course it would have been better for you to be raised by a black family, by your family. There's just, that's the this massive gray area that exists, that if you don't acknowledge all of the hard, it's beautiful. I feel the same as you, Jep. When she came home, it was oh my gosh, I'd do anything for her. She completed our family. She was I had that feeling of she was supposed to always be mine. God knew, but then you get going down the line, and you also have all the tough stuff and the questions and the big, he's gonna keep having more and more questions, and I feel so privileged to navigate that. And I know you do too, of how we do the best we can with our kids.
That's right. But in the end, we have his best interest at heart, 1,000%. I feel like him with us is where he needs to be. It's amazing.
It's a gift. Yeah, there's always, we still get that of oh, she's so lucky to have you. And I think any adoptive family is oh no, we're so lucky to have them. Like
that's right.
Luck has not. First of all, luck has nothing to do with it. With her, she had a lot of unlucky things happen to get to this point, and then, for us, I always just think like, oh man, if anybody's lucky, it's us. She's been the biggest gift to our family. I love that. So we were so lucky a couple months ago, our team, so Jep and I work together. We're both on the same team. And we had the opportunity to go back to Columbia after a long time of COVID shutdowns and, navigating all of that. And it was I think for both of us, it was a really powerful trip. And it was so nice. It's kind of selfishly to go back because it just reminds you of kind of, for me at least, maybe I'm speaking for myself here, it reminded me of why I do this work. And I always kind of have that, but there's just something about like looking these kids in the eyes and seeing how little they are and, nothing like that to refocus you. And I know we've both been like kind of processing through everything that we've experienced in that. And we met incredible kids, incredible families. But there was one little girl on that trip named Salome that captured all of our hearts. Will you share about what it was like to meet her and what it was like to meet her mom?
Yeah, it was incredible. She was the funniest little kid, sweetest, and she was reading us stories and singing songs. You could really see where the therapy with her had really done a lot of good. And what I don't think I did then, but I'll say now, I was actually abused as a kid. Not from family or anything, but it was from like 5 to 7. It's come from my first memories, which is never good. So kind of meeting a kid that young, it's hard because I don't talk about that much. I did write about it. Me and Jess did a book years ago, which I don't even know if you can find it, but it's called The Good, the Bad, and the Grace of God. And I talked about it in that book, but because I never told my wife or I didn't tell anybody until later in life. It was a weird thing. I told one guy that I kind of grew up with because he had something happen to him too. And so I think doing this work, and when you hear a lot about sex abuse, especially, it's like it gets me. It hurts me because I can empathize 100% with that because it happened to me. So, but I don't typically talk about it because I don't want people to think, oh man, you had it so bad. Like, I don't want people to think that I'm like, hey man, if something happened, obviously I had nothing to do with it. I mean, it sucks, but I do, when I see it going on, it makes me mad. And it also makes me want to help that person. And I think that's a big reason why I'm with All God's Children. And yeah, that girl was so sweet. I remember me going through that stuff. I was sick all the time, and my mom was super concerned. And I just wouldn't say anything, and I never did. And it really affected me, I feel like, for a long time. And I wish I would have had the resources that he has, which is great, which is through that abuse and getting through and knowing that it's wrong what was done to her and finding joy. So it meant a lot to me to meet that girl.
Yeah, and I think. I'm so sorry that you went through that. That's really terrible.
Well, and I was going to say, I think that that's probably why you have such a tender heart to this stuff too. But yeah, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I mean, 100%. And like, it was a hard time in our marriage. Me just kind of sharing that all with Jessica, and then she was kind of freaked out. Like, why would you never tell me that? I was like, yeah. Well, someone just, I think a lot of people, I think it's more probable. Well, honestly, I think it's more probable anywhere. People just don't want to talk about that. It was a rough time in your life, and especially as a child, because you think, maybe I did something, or
Yeah.
Yeah. Good stuff.
Yeah.
I don't blame you.
Yeah, it's really hard.
Will you share just a little bit about, do you remember Salome's story, a little bit about it?
Yeah, I know that, she was being abused by her mom's kind of boyfriend at the time, I believe. And, it was maybe a year or two ish. He was, sexually molesting her. And, she was just so little. That's what really got me. And I was like, man, you don't understand it, whatever. It just is pure evil. But all I can say is I didn't know her before I knew she had a hard time. Like she was, I think, very antisocial, and I don't think she didn't talk much. What I saw was a girl that had gotten 6 months worth of counseling and was super talkative and was super happy and showing us her room. And these people didn't have anything. I mean, it was like very little. And, but once again, I'm gonna go back to that. I think she had hope. I think she's seeing a better future. And that's what gets me fired up. It's like, man, this girl had it super tough and it's unexplainable. Evil was done to her, but she's more like a normal kid. And more so, I think she just is super happy.
Well, and that is what I think, like, that you're so right. I mean, it is like a pure evil thing that unfortunately happens to a lot of people. And it's so hard it's impossible to understand. But I think the only thing that can kind of get you through is to remember that there is so much hope, and that kids that go through these just devastating traumas, they can find joy and happiness and be a kid. And there is healing. And that's what is so exciting about the work that our partner in Colombia is doing. Would you mind just sharing a little bit about that partner and the amazing work that they're providing kids and families?
With these kids, there is a no cost counseling received by us to help them get over what's been done to them.
Yeah. And that's so important that that's available to families like in the lowest socioeconomic class in Colombia, so that cost is never a barrier. Because, as in the United States, even just to get counseling, it's not free generally. And so that can be a barrier to people getting the help that they need. And if, we know what the outcomes are like if kids and families don't get that support, don't get that counseling, and aren't able to process their trauma. And so it is just so amazing that we get to partner with this organization, and they get to, truly know and love these kids and families and meet them where they're at, and the healing and joy that's possible through that. It's just, I don't know. It makes me cry. It's really, truly amazing.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing. I mean, you just said there are estimated 2 million children, and we're able to reach, I think, like 50 kids at a time. And there's, they're going through different, we see more than 50 kids in a year, but they're at different stages. Some are in there longer, some are shorter, but they're getting counseling and therapy services. Their families are getting it. It's leading to them being able to continue to live within their family. And I mean, for me, the one of the most moving things is that it's stopping this violence against them in its tracks. Like it's ending it for them there. They're not repeating it, and the families are not repeating it, whatever it looks like, whoever it was. And that's so powerful to me that there is that. Like, I think it's interesting. We've kind of had this like overarching talk about hope today. And that's the thing. It's bringing this healing, this hope to these families that they can have something different and better. And that doesn't mean that, their life looks just perfect. It doesn't mean that things aren't still hard or that they don't still have things to work through, but they have the tools to be able to do it. And it's life-changing work. It changes everything. And I would say for me, like meeting Salome was like a huge life-changing moment. And for the same reason, Jep, as when I saw her and saw how tiny she was, I mean, that like really, it got me of like, oh my gosh, sometimes when I see pictures or I hear stories, I don't know what it is in my mind, but I think maybe it's just for my like own self-preservation of like imagining someone that tiny having something like that done to them. I have to go, I don't know, somewhere else. And so seeing it and knowing that this little girl was sexually assaulted on like multiple occasions, just absolutely, destroyed me. And I was honestly like going in when we were in our van, like just really nervous to meet her because what she's been through. And like you said, like when we got out of the van, she walked out to greet us. She welcomed us into her home. She was singing for us, showing us her work that she'd been working on in school, like introducing us to her stuffed animals. And it literally is like her bed and a little space and her mom's bed. And like there was one little separate area for like a kitchen. It was very tiny, but it was the same. I was just like struck like, oh my gosh, she's so very tiny and she's so remarkable and strong. And it just was so inspiring to me to just see like that her story does not end with her trauma. Like this wasn't it for her. God has more for her. She has a chance at a beautiful, beautiful life. And I don't know, I just went off on that, but what would you say like
Preach.
that
Preach.
I don't know. What would you say that meant to you? What did you walk away
100% right. And I thought the exact same thing because her and Gus are, I think, really the same age, or she may have been a year older than Gus. And he wore 9 and 10-year-old clothing. He's a huge kid, really big for his age. Him and River are a shoe size apart. River's 13, and Gus is 6. So that just shows you how big his feet are. He's a big boy.
Yeah, he's a big boy.
Big boy. And that's what really the frailty of her, I think anybody who's being honest with themselves, mad. I got mad. I was like, who in the right mind would hurt this little girl? But to see where she was, I was just so just appreciative and you could just see God's hand. What I saw. And then it went beyond. It's like, it made me feel like, man, we're doing all work, but it made me think like, and it's God sanctioned because we could help this girl as much as God had a hand in that. And it was a spiritual experience that was really awesome.
Yeah, that's exactly it. I mean, there's something supernatural that's going on.
That's right.
That we can't take credit for. We can give all these resources and do the work on our end. And that's exactly it. It was something bigger than that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I mean, the joy that you guys were able to witness, I feel like is such a testament to that and like the healing that's possible. Jep, when you came home from this trip and you're sharing with people, kind of about this work, like how would you explain, like, why is it so essential that these kids get this support, like kids that have survived sexual violence?
Well, kind of like I was saying earlier, me kind of having gone through, some of the same stuff. I wish I would have had, some resources and some help instead of bottling that stuff in. And, people do that. But also what I was just super impressed with is our team over there. Oh my gosh, these people are just, it's funny, my picture, it's a dumb analogy, but I got to say it. I picture these, main girls Xena warrior princesses, like with wings and like a big sword. Like, we're gonna fight for these kids,
Yep.
and they do.
I love that image.
I got chills. Like, I don't know if you can see.
I can't, but I believe you. I know. I got them too.
I do too. Through the video.
I was like, we have the right people in the right place that are advocating for these kids and doing such a tremendous job. It's just amazing. Like, I know there's good teams of people out doing some good stuff for kids, but man, I really believe in what we're doing.
Yeah.
It's just super evident.
There's none better than the people that are working. I was just back in Columbia with another smaller group, and I told them, I said, you, like, when I'm with you, it's funny, like you say the Xena warrior princess thing. I said something similar to them. I'm like, you guys are just like, you're lion hearted. You are out there like daily, minute by minute, fighting the fight for these kids. I wouldn't want to get in their way either. They're like impressive women. Like, do not mess with them. And they're taking all of that passion and like feeding it into their own people and making these incredible changes. And I like, sometimes I go back to my room and I'm like, like crying. And I'm like, how do they enter into just the fact of how brave and strong they are, that they enter into these hard places with these kids. They know these stories, they hear these things. I hear one story and I'm like, oh God, how does this happen? And they stay in there with these kids. They don't leave that with them. They're committed to walking them through this. And that's exactly it. They must have some Holy Spirit swords and shields and all the things, because it makes me all choked up. And this is so cheesy, but I just see them going on ahead of these kids who shouldn't have to be fighting this fight at this age, and taking some of that weight off of them. And that's where it gets me every time I'm with them. I'm like, oh my gosh, you guys, like, I just respect them so deeply. And, when I came home, I don't know about you, Jep, but when I came home from our trip that we went on back in May, I like warned people that I talked to because I'm like, the need is huge. You can make a difference. Here are things that are happening. And I told people, I'm like, I'm just warning you now. Like, I've been real nice and like easing into asking you for money to support these things, and no more nice person. Like, they need money. They need support right now to keep these things going, to grow it. There are 2 million kids. This is something that is scalable, that we could get more support for. But the bottom line is we need more funding for it. And so like, how can people, from your viewpoint, how can people help kids right now, like Salome? How can someone make a difference right now?
Well, my dad always taught me, and my parents are some of the most giving people. I mean, I just got really lucky to have parents that would give anybody anything, take people in. And my dad always said that. He goes, son, you got to put your money where your mouth is. If you want to help kids, then put your money there. I mean, it's like in any facet of life. So I just think it's such an easy thing to do. I don't know. It's hard. I'm like you. I get mad sometimes. Like, why can't you guys? But yeah, man, I say, pray about it. Look up what we do. Reach out to us. We'll talk to you all day long. We'll tell you anything
we
you
will.
want.
Absolutely.
And Marisa does an amazing job. We do these come and see calls where you can actually meet with some of these kids and a counselor, and you see how they are. I mean, you can see and what they were like before and how they are now. It's amazing. So I love what we do, and I know more people are seeing it and hearing about it. And I want us to grow and just help more kids. And it definitely takes people listening to just put your money where your mouth is, and let's do this together.
Absolutely. And every gift of every size matters. One-time gifts, recurring gifts, Prayer, obviously, always appreciated and helps so much. But yeah, whatever is accessible to you, like that can help a child heal from something that is, I mean, no child should have to go through that, but like what a wonderful thing to help them in their journey to the other side, you know, and you can, whoever's listening to this, you can do that. You can do that today.
Well, and this is not exact math because no one should turn to me for exact math. But I was like figuring out, I mean, these therapy sessions, you know, when we go to a therapist, it's like $100 up to $250 a session. And these therapies, like what we're funding, cost so very little. It costs like the amount of buying a fancy coffee per therapy session. The dollar goes so far where we're working. And so I love that you say that, like $5 is a therapy session. If that's what you have to give, like, please give it. And if you have more than that, you were so fortunate, Jep, to be raised like that, because a lot of people weren't raised to be generous and like see what that looks like. And like,
and I say that saying, like, my parents not wealthy growing up. Like we were kind of poor-ish, but it doesn't matter. Like my dad would see a guy on the lower and give him $5. Like he was just like, hey, man, God be with you. Like it didn't matter if they had money or not.
They were generous.
Just giving family, which is awesome.
Yeah. And I love that. I mean, I feel like that's the mic drop right there. No matter
Not
what
much
you
more
have
to say after that. Yeah. Absolutely. That was Jep Robertson, National Advancement Officer for AGCI. Thanks for listening to Together by AGCI. As always, if you liked what you heard, please rate or review us wherever you listen to podcasts. If you'd like to read or watch even more stories, check out our website, allgodschildren.org. Reach out to us and let us know what you think on Instagram at All God's Children International or email us at together@allgodschildren.org. We look forward to sharing another story of hope the next time we're together. We'll talk to you soon.